Logging. What do you know about logging in Canada? I grew up in British Columbia. My dad was a logging truck driver, so logging paid for my lifestyle growing up. And it paid for a lot of kids' lifestyles, but it has suffered over the last 30, 40 years, 30 or 40 years. And Trump has just made it even that much harder by, you guessed it, increasing the duty to 34%. So in the past, we've had duties or tariffs on Canadian softwood lumber for most of this period of free trade. Lumber has never really gone free trade over the US border. But Canadian companies have discounted their prices in order to stay competitive so that when the importer brings it up, they're not paying an extra fee on top of the market price of the lumber. But at 34%, Canadian companies cannot do this. The other thing that Trump has done, which is really going to affect more American companies than Canadian companies, is he's asking for 3 years back taxes or back duties, tariffs. So it's been 7%, 14%, and now it's up to 34%, and he wants 34% for the last 3 years. Where do you get that idea? Maybe that digital sales tax that Canada removed. And at this point, we maybe should be looking to threaten to put it back on again. The Canadian lumber industry has had a really hard go of it. And a lot of our companies have shut down. A lot of our mills have shut down, and our logging companies have shut down. Because, well, first we had the pine beetle in British Columbia, and the pine beetle killed millions of our trees. Now, logging companies went in and cut down those trees, but they're only good for certain types of products, depending on how long they've been dead in the forest, waiting to be cut down. Then we've got wildfires. Now, wildfires don't burn all the log, don't burn all the tree. It's not like a bonfire where you're sitting there and then at the end you have ash. So when the wildfires come through, they burn the pine needles, the leaves, the smaller branches, the bark, but they boil the tree. So the tree, the living part of the tree, doesn't burn, it boils. So it's still standing after the fire is gone. So you have all of these dead trees just standing there. So logging companies have to come in, clear them out, and plant new trees. We've also had precipitation. We have a drought, which is a huge issue. We have not been getting the amount of rain that we usually got when I was a kid, not even the amount of snow. Precipitation has been, like we say, global warming, but really the biggest problem is, like, we still have warm temperatures and cold temperatures. That really hasn't changed so much as the amount of precipitation or lack thereof. So the forests are dry. The trees aren't growing as fast because they don't have the water. There's lots of problems with our forestry industry. And adding tariffs to it is just one more thing that could kill it once and for all, because it's already on its last legs. And is our government doing enough? Well, Carney did come and he put aside over $1 billion to help the forestry industry across Canada, which means loans for small and medium-sized businesses to help them keep going and figure out where else to sell their products, because 75% of what we cut down goes to the States, and that has to stop. And I think that's the biggest thing that Canadians can do. The Canadian logging industry, if it wants to survive and thrive and become resilient, the first thing it needs to be doing is looking outside of North America to find out who else needs our lumber, and ensuring that we have mills that are finishing the lumber before it gets shipped out. Shipping logs, raw logs, down to the States so that the mills down there can cut them and have all those jobs is not helping the Canadian logging economy. And the only ones that can make that decision are the lumber companies, the logging companies, the mills themselves. The government just opens the door, goes to the other countries and negotiates a trade agreement to provide opportunities. They can't force our companies to then go and find those new customers. And what have our companies been doing? They've been lazy. They've been lazy and going to the States for that good old American dollar, because we can use that 30%, 20% difference in the value of the Canadian dollar under the value of the American dollar in order to make that extra little bit that we can make so we can sell less at a lower price. Anyway, you get it. We can sell at a loss because of the conversion rate. But that's not fair to our Canadian producers. And Americans have been taking advantage of that in order to get the best deal for them. And it's time for Canadian companies and Canadian industries to stop looking to America, to stop looking to the free trade agreement, and to start looking at the world and across Canada and start thinking of long-term and not just that short-term easy sale. So it's up to us to make those decisions about where we buy, what we buy, and ensure that we are buying for our nation, our industries. If you're building a house, demand that your contractor utilize wood and lumber from Canadian sources. Ensure that they aren't going to Home Depot, that they're going to maybe a local lumber yard or Home Hardware, Revy. There are options out there for Canadians, but you have to demand that the people that are making the choices make the Canadian choice on your behalf. These small and medium-sized Canadian logging businesses that are thinking that they're going to have to pay this 3-year back tariff, that's going to be hard. And it's going to hurt. And that needs to be addressed. We need to take the DST and say, if you're going to do this to our logging industry, then we're going to bring the digital sales tax back. But the Canadians that do it, the Canadian businesses that do it, they're the ones that are going to be resilient, that are going to make it through this trade war, that are going to make it through Trump trying to kill our industries, and are going to come out the other side a lot wealthier, a lot bigger, and a lot more Canadian. Until next time, peel out.